What's going on, guys? A couple days ago, the NHL Network released their list of the top 20 NHL defensemen, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to compare this to their ratings in NHL 21. Obviously, when EA released their top 10 defensemen, a lot of people were giving them crap for it, including me. Doughty number 3, tied with Hedman and CARLSON. Seemed a bit strange. So if you just look at the top 10 in both lists, 4 of the 5 defensemen in the top 5 are actually the same. So I think everyone kind of knows who the best defensemen are in the NHL. But after that, there's actually only one player in the rest of the top 10 that's the same on both lists. That's Chris Letang. And then looking at the rest of their top 20, I thought it'd be interesting to kind of just look at the rating and see kind of like who's overrated in EA NHL 21 and then obviously who's underrated as well. So going through it, Victor Hedman, of course, is number 1 on both lists. But I feel like on the NHL Network list, he's the sole number 1, whereas of course, in NHL 21, he's tied with CARLSON and Doughty, which didn't make too much sense. So Hedman, a 91 overall, number 1 on the list. Again, I think that makes a lot of sense. And next up here, number 2, we have Roman Josi, 90 overall. Now, in my custom ratings, I actually made Josi a 91, Hedman a 92, making them 1 and 2. So I definitely think, the NHL Network's top 20 list is a lot better. Maybe EA can use whoever made this list to make their ratings next year. Then number 3 of John Carlson, who's a 91 overall. Again, I feel like him and Josi should have flipped ratings. Number 4 is Alex Pietrangelo, 90 overall. I feel like that is pretty solid. Now, number 5 is Seth Jones. I think this is one I mentioned when looking at the EA ratings. I thought Seth Jones was definitely underrated. I can see both him and Werenski, they're 87. Jones should probably be like a 90. Number 6, Cale Makar. So this is a very interesting one. This is one I might not even agree with. I'm a big Makar fan, but he's only had his rookie season, so already making him the number 6 defenseman in the NHL might be a little bit premature, although I do think, that his potential is top 5 defense in the game for sure, maybe even eventually number 1. He's only an 85, so that's pretty low rated, I'd say, especially if you have him at number 6. We already know he's actually below Quinn Hughes. The next guy is also very underrated, Dougie Hamilton, number 7. I think he was my number 1 underrated player in the game. Top 10 defenseman, only an 85 there, lowly potential. I mean, they got Brady Shea, 1 overall below him, and Dougie Hamilton's a much, much better defenseman than Brady Shea. After that, you have Chris Letang. I think Chris Letang actually might be number 8 on both lists. Yeah, he actually is number 8 on both lists. That's kind of surprising. Honestly, I'm not too upset with that. He does have injury problems when he's healthy. I think Chris Letang's a very good defenseman. Low-end, top 10 defenseman, I think, is pretty accurate for him. Now, number 9 is Charlie McAvoy. So he's another guy I think is very underrated in this game based on just kind of how good he is. I mean, if you look, Char's still an 84 overall at 43 years old. McAvoy's only 2 better than Char. I don't know about that, but McAvoy there, 86. I feel like he should definitely probably be at least an 88. And then Miro Heiskanen on Dallas is the number 10. I think Heiskanen kind of showed these playoffs just how good he is. They don't even have him as the best defenseman on his team. I feel like for sure you could at least flip him and Klingberg, but Heiskanen there, 86. I feel like EA, for whatever reason, definitely the younger players are always a bit underrated, but I think in the case of Makar and Hughes, because they only have a rookie season, it's fair to be a little bit patient, but Heiskanen, he's showed 2 years now how good he is. You could probably bump him up to at least an 87. Now, speaking of Quinn Hughes, he's actually the number 11 defenseman on this list. Again, 1 overall above Makar. I'm not sure about that one. 86 overall, though. I think it is pretty fair for rookie season. I think him and Makar should probably both be 86s. Number 12, Zach Werenski. I feel like 12, honestly, for Werenski's pretty good. I believe he had the most goals of any defenseman last year, 87 overall. Him and Jones basically carry that Blue Jackets team because they're both so good. 13 is Brent Burns. This is an interesting one. Burns definitely, the defensive game's fallen off a bit. Last year, we have 45 points, 70 games. Isn't too bad. 35 years old. Burns, honestly, it's a tough one to judge. I feel like 13 for Burns really isn't, the worst thing ever. Now, Shea Theodore here at 14. Like Dougie Hamilton, I think is one of the most underrated players in this game. 84 overall. So, I have him tied in rating with Zdeno Chara. I mean, Theodore and Pietrangelo, honestly, might be the best D pair in the NHL next year. In game 90-84, it's close, but it's not quite the best D pair. Theodore should be at least an 87, I think. He's just such a good young defenseman. So, had him 84, definitely a disservice to him. Now, number 15 is where the NHL Network has Drew Doughty. I think that's a lot more fair. You could probably even argue he should be lower than this. I think 15 is fair. We just said how Theodore should be an 87. I believe I made Doughty an 87 as well. So, I think NHL Network, is pretty on par with where I have him. I don't think he's as bad as a lot of people like to claim, nor do I think he's tied for still being the best defense in the league with Victor Hedman. Number 16 is Shea Weber. I think that's a pretty good spot for Weber. He's probably a little bit too high rated here at 88 to be that 16 spot if we think Theodore should be 87. But have Weber at 87, tied with Theodore. He's older though. I think that's honestly a fine rating with him. Now 17, Jacob Slavin. I think Slavin's probably still a bit underrated there at 17. Just such a good poised defenseman. So good in his own zone. I believe he has the second most takeaways of any player over the last 2 years, only behind Mark Stone. So I think Slavin should honestly be an 88. Like, he's very, very good. Him and Hamilton both, I think, would be kind of competing with Pietrangelo and Theodore if they play together as like the top D pair in the NHL. And after him, Erik Karlsson. So this is another interesting one. Is Erik Karlsson the 18th best defenseman in the NHL? I don't know about that. I think personally I would have Karlsson higher, but that's just because I like to give him the benefit of the doubt with the injuries and everything. I think when healthy, Karlsson is probably still a top 10 defenseman. The thing is, I guess, the big caveat, of course, would be when he is healthy. Last year, he had 40 points in 56 games. So, I mean, he was on pace for a better point per game than Brent Burns, and I also think he's better defensively than Brent Burns. Burns was 13, so I feel like Karlsson should at least be above Brent Burns there, as I do think he has a better two-way game. And for 3 or 4 years, I feel like Karlsson was the undisputed best defenseman in the NHL. Yet Doughty, that was never the case for, and he's still higher than Karlsson, so I'm not sure about that one. I feel like Karlsson's definitely better than both Burns and Doughty. Now, in game's got high franchise potential. I think that's a bit much, but the 89 overall rating, I'm honestly not too upset with. So I guess that's one place where I disagree with the NHL Network, but so far their list has been very, very good. Definitely better than EA's. Now, number 19, Ryan Ellis. I think he's the guy that was underrated for a while. Finally, people are starting to take notice. 87 overall for him. I think, EA and NHL Network both got that right. And then finally, rounding out the number 20 spot, you have Morgan Rielly on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Morgan Rielly is a very good defenseman. I think a lot of Toronto haters like to say he's not. And I feel like maybe even some Toronto fans don't appreciate him enough, as they're always saying how bad their defense is. But that's definitely no fault to Morgan Rielly's. I think he's a very, very good defenseman. Without him, Toronto's defense would be terrible. So him at number 20, 87 overall, I think is a fair rating as well. So I just want to kind of look at the two lists, guys, compare them. Again, I think if EA just used the NHL Network's top 20 list, the ratings would be a lot better. I feel like when you go through the top 20 list and look at the ratings, it's pretty obvious who's underrated and who's overrated. But I would love you guys' thoughts on the two lists. Which one do you think is better? Do you think NHL Network got any of them wrong? Again, really the only two issues I have with it is I think McCarr might be a little bit high based on one season, and I think Karlsson's a little bit too low based on who's above him. But other than that, I think it's a very, very good list. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, leave that thumbs up. If you guys haven't seen it, there's actually a new patch coming out tomorrow that's supposed to fix a bunch of issues with franchise, scouting, chemistry, as well as the defenseman rating issue where it wouldn't show the same in the edit player screen as it would on the roster. So hopefully, with all that fixed, franchise will be a lot better going forward. I didn't see anything about trade values, though, so there's one thing that still needs to be addressed, but definitely happy to see them fixing some of these other things. Again, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, leave that thumbs up. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.